students, those who have already taken lot of efforts in changing, it's a paradigm shift, and accepting this paradigm shift of teaching and learning, and got involved into online learning. I'm not talking about them, I have a salute for their efforts, but there are still pockets, there are still uh, faculty members and students where there is a difficulty. And the first difficulty starts with the self motivation. Unless and until we decide, because we were being tutored in an environment where something like policing used to be there. Somebody who is observing me, somebody who is going to ask me a question, somebody is there in front of me, what would be my image. So many things would used to happen, and because of that the learning used to happen. But now, in the new regime, in the new paradigm, online learning, this is not going to happen. The only thing which can survive and the only thing which can sustain the effort of a student and the effort of a faculty member for this process of teaching and learning is self motivation. And that's the reason, we have to nurture and we have to develop our systems which are faith based. I have faith as a teacher in my students that they will learn, and my students have faith in me that whatever in the limited resources my faculty member is teaching me, I have to learn. And that's what is called as self motivation. So it's basically derived from the self motivation. And whenever you are saying self motivation, the self motivation is basically not only from a faculty and a student, but also from the environment which has created the situation. And that's where we were expecting that those technical issues, the technical issues will get sorted out. As far as our country is concerned, the biggest challenge now in front of us is to provide network, and that too a moderate speed at least network for the students to learn, for somebody to work from home, offices basically, for somebody to share good things with others. That's the network part of it. The other part of it is, and I'm sure many of you and many of my students indicated concern about the availability of the power supply. Even the electricity availability is also a question, and that's where there will be a discontinuity in the learning process, and no learning process would be optimal or effective unless and until there is a continuity in learning. Now, I'm mentioning all these issues and challenges because we have to take care of these challenges. We have to take care of certain things which are there in front of us, and we have to find a way out. The most thing which I have observed, and my colleagues must have observed, is inappropriate module of teaching. Now, let me tell you very frankly, if I start showing a presentation which is already available in public domain, what is the fun and what's the value addition from my side as far as a teacher is concerned if I keep on just showing those slides? And that's where the teaching module which we have to adapt for, and the teaching module which we will have to cater to, must be a different than the classroom teaching. Because in classroom teaching you have n number of ways to involve the students. Now here you have only one way to involve a student, is to keep on speaking. And that's where we need to identify a right kind of a module of teaching. Chalk and talk, gone are the days. Only online and tutoring, and I'm sorry to say, but I got inputs from many students that the colleges, those who are now saying that, oh, we are detached from academics, let's continue in online mode, and continuously there is an engagement of 3 hours, 4 hours online lecturing. I personally don't feel, there can be difference of opinion, but with due respect to everybody, I have the opinion that the module of teaching which we are of course, adapting is not a good module of teaching. Now, what is important is definitely the laboratories are totally neglected from them. There are no laboratories, there are no experiments which a student can take place, and on top of that, very surprising, we say the language of engineering is mathematics, the backbone of engineering is laboratory. And the industries are saying the competencies with which students are coming out from engineering education system is not up to the mark. Now we are, as faculty members, we are caught in between this situation where there are problems and we need to solve those problems. And that's the reason we need to change our style, we need to change our approach. The first thing I proposed is problem-based learning. Nowadays, I personally feel that there is no point, absolutely there is no point in continuing with this I will speak, you will listen type of a regime. We need to stop that. We have reports, lot of data asked by n number of agencies on somebody who is already excellent colleagues and nicely being evaluated colleagues. Virtual laboratories for College of Engineering Pune, we have different nodal centers. He or she has those of vaccine which is getting tested. Somebody is of course taking care of others, somebody is taking a challenge, and that's what has to happen in our education system also, that small exercises should happen, very methodical, very scientific exercises and experiments should happen across the country by many institutions, and there has to be there has to be a platform where all these experiences can be shared in a public domain. So this is basically a collaborative mode of learning. Unless and until you have collaborative mode of learning, nothing is going to happen. Absolutely nothing is going to happen. Otherwise, your effort would be drop in the ocean. That's it. Nothing is going to change then. And that, just to cut short this story, based on all these experiences, we developed our laboratories. We indicated to the entire education community that please look at these type of laboratories seriously. Look at these type of experiments seriously, because in education there is nothing like a failure. It's evolving process, and that too a very slowly evolving process. Whenever I say slowly evolving process, because you just don't change curriculum so often. Fundamentals are going to remain fundamental, basic concepts are going to remain basic concepts, but what is changing every year is student in front of you, and the type of student which is in front of you today, this year, may not be the type of student next year, or might not have experienced before also. If you look at all these dynamics of education system, and if you compare this with industry, you will be surprised, because they are working with dead stock, we are working with livestock. Let's not forget that. And that's where that's where I'm going to demonstrate you the laboratories. But what type of the features of the laboratories which we have? We have virtual laboratories, and basically these are two types of labs where we have internet mode and where we have intranet mode. And this typical intranet mode we came across with, thanks to my nodal centers. They indicated us that we are interested in using this lab. But the problem is, my college is situated in a remote location, and once the fiber gets cut because of any reason, because of the construction work, because of maybe a JCB work, whatever, nobody comes there to repair that for weeks together. What do I do? Can I stop learning? And that's the reason we came out with the concept called as intranet mode. Intranet means all our laboratories will be stationed and will be deployed on the server of an institution. All the data would be collected in the server, and whenever you get the connectivity back to our main server, all the updates, all the data analytics, everything would come to you. Till that time it would remain. So there is no break in learning. That's because if you can now recollect the issues which we discussed, for all these issues and almost all these issues, we found a solution. But every time new issues would keep on coming, and we all have to now work together and ensure that these issues would be tackled nicely. So then one is internet mode, where whenever you have a freedom to assess and access the laboratory, you just go out and access the laboratory. If you are in the college, why to waste that bandwidth? Let's not forget, it costs, right? And that's where one more experience I want to share with you with my industry colleagues. They said, why your students are not professional? I said, what? After graduating, when they join, there is a lack of professionalism. I said, that's all right, but you can't blame me alone, because students are with me for only 8 hours. 16 hours they are out of my bound and limit. So whatever I can do in 8 hours, I have done. And that is what is the professionalism which they are carrying, is what is the effort. Now the question which was there, can we extend these timings? Because in a student mode, your primary aim is to learn. And if I can extend all my platforms to them whenever they feel like learning, the platforms are available. And that's the beauty of this online platforms and online learning. I can pause and I can learn. I can grasp something, I can consolidate something, and then even I can learn. I can learn with my own pace. All these things can happen. Then we can extend, instead of 8 hours, can we have an engagement, let's say, for more 4 hours? So the efficiency of your education system will get enhanced. But at the same time, will it not be a good idea that I will give him a laboratory also? Just play with the laboratory without any hesitation, without anything in mind saying that, oh, this breaks, what will happen? If this won't work, what will happen? And that's where you will find that there is a word called as remote triggered laboratories. Remote triggered laboratories means the laboratories which are being developed, and that's the model which we propose to the MHRD also. And what is that model? The model is all high-end equipment. These are all costly equipment, and the usage of that equipment in an institution is not more than 18 to 20%. 80% time that instrument is not being utilized as far as the experiment is concerned, because that instrument is being locked down in that particular institution, not available for others. So if I can have these type of laboratories, and if I can have, and if I show that you can use these laboratories even if you are not my students, and that's what is called as remote triggered laboratories, wherein we have 13 pilot plants which can be operated. Absolutely, they can be operated from any student of any institution of any corner, provided he or she has the basic knowledge of that. And the idea is, using virtual labs you can practice, because there is no involvement of physical infrastructure. And once you have gained that confidence and gone through a mode of assessment through virtual labs, we can guarantee you a slot. You can book a slot, and for that particular time slot, the entire facility, that particular plant, would be in your hand. You operate that plant the way you want. A camera, IP-based camera, is connected to that plant, so you can really view what's happening in the plant as if you are sitting in College of Engineering, Pune Instrumentation and Control Department. That's the beauty of remote triggered laboratory, and that's where that cooperation work, which I said, there is no point in duplicating the facility which I have. Somebody will say that yes, you are using only 20%, I will invest in this facility, let your student use this facility and my student would use this facility. This can be done very, very effectively and quickly, so that students would get the facility available for them even if they are from remote locations, because we don't want to create any digital divide in this country. Those who have and those who have not, then there is a problem. So how can we solve that problem? We of course appeal to all the authorities that let us set up these laboratories across the country in good institutions. Let them take a parental role of that laboratory, let them maintain those laboratories, and let others use those laboratories. In lieu of that, you can use their laboratories. So then most of the time what happens, the money is being invested in high-end equipment and the utility of that equipment is 120%. So that's a sheer wastage of national resources. So we can stop that national wastage of that national resource immediately, and we develop that technology. We started using those laboratories since 2012, and there are many students those who have used my laboratory for the project purpose, for maybe using that lab from remote and getting the readings and getting some advantage of saying that, oh, I saw this equipment, I started that equipment, I know how that equipment operates. You have that, and that's the reason we have to go towards that remote triggered laboratories. And just to give you an idea, in phase 3 we are working on creating a question bank which is already there with us. Now we are creating an analytics based on that. And of course, if we all come together as a consortium, work together, we can develop good analytics and we can give direction to the students saying that, oh, this is wrong actually. And that's where now what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate you some laboratories. Please bear with me. Okay, go here. Yeah. So okay. Just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. Sorry. Yeah. Now the first demonstration is basically the portal which we are using is called as coepvlab.ac.in, and these are our various experiments which we are doing. One is called as a virtual terminal unit, VTU. Now, in fact, it's virtual technological university also. If we come together and prepare that and create a model which can be replicated elsewhere, let's stop following others, let's be leaders. And that's where you will find that this virtual terminal unit portal is nothing but our remote triggered laboratory, from where a student can book a slot, student can access those instruments, write the code, write the logic, run the program, run the system, get those results. But the beauty of this is, at the end of the experiment, all the readings, every 500 milliseconds, the readings are noted. So our philosophy is to reduce the laborious or a clerical work where the competence required is just to note down is to be eliminated. We are developing engineering students. So if I maybe develop him how to take the readings, once or twice you can tell him how to take the readings, because that's a thought process. Once you deliver that thought process, then onwards, if it is not that important, we have to automate that process. And this pandemic has clearly shown an evidence that there is a scope for automation. Lot of scope is there for automation and instrumentation and the sensors, because people have seen that I am detached from my factory, I'm detached from my workplace, I can't do anything. I become ineffective. My plant becomes ineffective. How can I? We all will learn a lot. We develop with my industry plant pandemic. has clearly shown an evidence that there is a scope for automation. Lot of scope is there for automation and instrumentation and the sensors, because people have seen that I am detached from my factory, I'm detached from my workplace, I can't do anything. I becomes ineffective. My plant becomes ineffective. How can I work like this? And that's the reason this remote triggered laboratory can be seen as the platform for use of laboratories across the country by consortium partners, because we can have a consortium, and then we can say that yes, the analytics is there. So what I was talking about is every 500 millisecond the reading is being noted automatically at the back end. You don't have to do that job, and after you complete the experiment, all the result sheet would be made available to you. And probably the best suggestion to that is then the analysis of the data of the experiment would be there for another 8 days. The current laboratory practice which we are following as having a slot of 2 hours, we complete the experiment. I'm sorry, but we complete sometimes experiment in half an hour. Everybody enjoys because the experiment is over, but nothing is being learned. Now, how can I learn this? Because my system, I'm not being stressed, because every time I have to look at so many things and take the readings also, and then I have to manipulate the readings also, because the graph won't look like the graph which my faculty might be expected me to plot. Instead of that, if I get all the readings, these readings are handy to me, then what will happen? Naturally, those readings would be the demonstration of my performing the experiment. All the events would be recorded, and the most important thing is the faculty need not have to chase the student physically. So the report would come to faculty member also that in this experiment, these many mistakes this student incurred. All the mistakes are recorded, not for punishment but for performance improvement. And next time, if I want to give him a dose, I will manipulate and modulate my dose and say, oh, here is the area where he is making mistakes, because he is going by trial and error method. Trial and error is not a right method. He should know what is he doing, and that's where these labs would help you. The other is basically an internet lab, means the labs which we have developed under this portal, and I can show you this apart from okay, I'll just show you this also and the other lab also. So if I go to the vlab.co.in, I'll just okay. So these are the labs which are available to you. vlab.co.in. I'm going to show you my consortium partners. This is the consortium partners, and these are our objectives, and these are the broad areas where the laboratories are located, and these are the participating institutions where 8 IITs, 1 NIT, 2 universities, and College of Engineering, Pune. We all are there, and we have enjoyed developing these laboratories, and we expect that you also to become part of these laboratories. So here what you have is, you can see those labs, you can use those labs. Now what I'm going to show is, let me try one lab. Just to get a feel of it. Now this is an open domain, and I must tell you this, these labs are free of cost. Any student, any faculty member, in fact anybody who is interested in using these labs is free to use these labs. This is an open domain, and this is a project which is 100% sponsored by Government of India, and that's where there is nothing which you have to pay to anybody to use these labs. So these are the labs which we have developed, COEP and others, and I'm going to show you a very interesting lab called as Programmable Logic Controller Lab. Now let me tell you the reason also why I selected this lab. I selected this lab because of the simple reason. The simple reason what we have is, number one, there are certain technologies which are going to rule this world, there are certain technologies which will become mandatory. One of the technology or technological areas in the process plants and the manufacturing area, automotive and everywhere, is automation of their plants. And there will be a huge demand for those students, those who are interested in learning the techniques and the technologies for automation. One of the uh, maybe a very critical technology is programmable logic controller. In fact, irrespective of the discipline, everybody should know actually how that PLC works, and that's the reason I selected this particular laboratory for the demonstration. So you can go to the list of experiments, and under this there are certain experiments which are developed, and the sequence of these experiments are such that uh, slowly you learn, but while doing it, the beauty of this lab is the same platform of developing the logic and the control system is being used in the remote triggered lab also. That means here you can practice without any hardware resource, and then using that practice, using that, you can absolutely use my remote triggered laboratories. And that's where we always say that there has to be a complementary relation between remote triggered laboratories versus virtual laboratories. Probably this will solve most of our problems of maintenance of the labs and upkeep of the labs and so many things at the same time. Without compromise, without compromise, students will learn the harder way of laboratory. It student must learn laboratory. Student must practice in the laboratory, either in a soft form or virtual form or in a real form. Percentage can differ, but learning has to happen. There is no escape for it. There is absolutely no escape for this. So just to give you an idea, I want to show you one laboratory where you will find there is a systematic approach wherein there is AM, pre-test, theory, simulator, procedure, some audio and video. Then post-test is also there, and we have modernized this post-test this time. There are review questions and assignments and feedback. But the beauty of this is all the resources, all the knowledge, all the required literature in either in public domain or developed by professors is at one place under this theory. So you will find some relevant theory for that. You will use that theory, how to use this clear understanding, and the theory is given. Unless and until you read this theory, you can't use the simulator. But once you have studied this, then go to simulator. Now this simulator, whenever you are using simulator, I must tell you this, all the simulators for 1200 laboratories are being developed in open source. Now why we want this? Because it was a mandate by the central government, and now it has become so handy that I don't have to pay to anybody for my license. It's a public domain. We develop, we nurture that platform and the open source platform, and the open source platform gives me back in the form of without licensing software. And that's how we have to work. And it's a huge consortium which is working, called as Free and Open Source Software Consortium, called as FOSS, and people are literally working. Many professors are working. We all have to work together. Two beautiful things about this open source. One is you keep on working on that. You don't need licenses. But whenever you are giving it to some non-commercial way to others, they don't have to even ask for anything. So that's the policy which we are using. And then what will happen is you will see a laboratory where the basic framework, and this is called as a work area, where you can use this laboratory for developing a logic. Now whenever you are developing a logic, I always stress on the need that each and every experiment of each and every laboratory must have an association with a day-to-day problem, or a problem associated with industry. At higher level, associated with industry. At lower level, It has to be associated with our day-to-day life. It is a must. It is a must, and that's why I'm appealing all of my teachers and faculty members sitting here and students even to start correlating that, so that you will get and you will realize importance of learning, and that's how you have to learn. So for example, I want to create a scheme wherein I say that I want to switch on a motor by using start and stop push button, but it's not only putting the start and stop push button in place, but if temperature of the winding goes high, the motor should trip automatically. At the same time, the motor, when I give a command, I want to move away from the motor, because for example, this is a very huge motor, so I want to go away. So the moment I give a command, the motor should start with some delay. And that's what is my problem statement. And that's the problem statement which I discuss with students and say that, hey, here is the platform available to you. Do whatever you want to. Failure is not a crime. You discuss, you develop, you nurture this, you practice. But what should happen is, ultimately, I need result. I need that you have learned this. And then I will also, as a faculty, I can assess and I say that, yes, you have learned. I'm not worried about, as a faculty member, I'm not worried about how many failures are there. But I'm worried if there is no learning with every failure. There has to be a learning. There has to be someday or other, but there is a failure, there is a learning. And this has to be indicated to students right in the beginning. So my student would say that, yes, let me try this, and maybe I'll just show you how I can do that. So I can add one rung and say that, yes, this is my start push button. Then this would be my stop push button, right? I can put here a stop push button. And then I say that, yes, this would be my motor. Okay? Yeah, if I make a mistake, it will show you cannot place input at the last segment of rung. So I have taken this and I can put this here because I have to select. See, now just look at this. Your involvement as a faculty member for telling these small mistakes need not be there. System has taken care of it, but what is your contribution here? You identified while developing this software that these mistakes can occur and you should indicate those mistakes. That's the contribution, and once that is being done, your job is over. So I will tag this as, for example, I call this as a start and I submit. I call this as a stop because this is my stop push button. Okay, so I call this as stop and I say that yes, and then I tag this as a motor. I say that, oh, this is the motor which I want to play with. So that's the motor. Now these are the push buttons, so they are momentary. So I have to tell them that you can't switch on and keep on only. You just give a trigger and come back. And just to have this trigger in place, I have to add here the holding thing, which is there in the theory also. Now what is important here is student must learn all those aspects of theory. So I say that, yes, this is my hold on contact or the latching contact. Now once it is being done, I say that whether I have done everything. So I found that, yes, there is a start push button expected, stop is expected, the motor is expected, but what is not being shown here is if temperature goes above, the motor should stop automatically. So I should have something like for temperature switch. So I just go here and say that, yes, as if this is my temperature switch. So I call this as TSH, temperature switch high. If it goes high, it will become open. Now I can play without any hardware, without engaging my actual resources in the laboratory, sitting at home 24/7. Whenever I feel like trying, I can. And that's the possibility, and that's the beauty. So I satisfied four conditions, I'm sorry. Start, stop, temperature and motor. But I have to satisfy one more condition, which says that the motor should start after some delay. So I have to add here a delay. So what I will do is I'll add here one more rung which says that let's have a delay here. Okay. So now the question is, so the timer theory is being done. They have learned this theory and they are now playing with this. So what I can do is to start the timer, I say that yes, unless and until that start is there, the timer has got no meaning. So I call this as one second. Okay. So I call this as motor and I submit this, then I configure this timer and I say that this is my T on timer. And what is the preset value? For example, I need 10,000 milliseconds uh, to go away. This much time I have to wait and then the motor should start, and using these contacts I can switch on the motor. So what I will do is I'll just change this tag, and instead of saying this as motor, I say that this is out only. Okay, so this would become out. Now this is what is learning basically for a student, and you have to say that you practice this, and if you make a mistake then you can do this. Now I'll just check this. One second. Oh, okay, okay. Yeah. So I can change this, and then what I can do is, yeah, I can call here as out, and then I can submit. Now what is important here is I develop some logic. Whether it is right or wrong, I don't know, but I can take a chance, say that yes, let's see whether it is working or not. So there is a procedure which says you compile. If you make a mistake, this cannot be compiled successfully, and then you say that if it is so, then start the motor. So run the system. So if it is run, I'll show you. So what I can do here is I give a toggle command to this, because it is now, just look at this. So that is started. Okay. So now the thing is, your system is on, and now you can check why the timer is not working, right? So if I want to do it, I can't do it in run mode. It is already given that I cannot do it in run mode. So I have to check what is wrong actually, and then I can find out that yes, there is something wrong. Let me check, and I made a mistake in this tag, right? So I'll write here, this is the actual tag actually. Okay, so that's the learning. So then again I compile the program, I say yes to that, then I run the program, and then I say that yes, let's see whether it works or not. If it works, I will happy. If it is not, I have to go back and check why. So just look at this. The timer is on, this bit is not on, this is the bit which I'll be using for motor. Now this has become on. That means after 10,000 milliseconds, which I said, it's my job actually, it's my requirement. If I want to go, if it's a huge motor creating a lot of noise, and I have to protect my ears, even if I have a muffler and I have ear guards, still I want to be there. So how much time it takes for me to be in the safe place? For example, 5 minutes. Now I can set that time as a 5 minutes. I give a command and I go out, and after 5 minutes motor will automatically start. Now the motor has started, but the problem is if the temperature of that winding has gone high, I can simulate that. So now the motor has stopped, everything has stopped. Just see here, this is stopped. And even if it is cooled now, motor cannot start, because this problem is to be identified by this person, why this has happened, and then he will give a command for the motor to start. Now what is the beauty here is you are indicating him that control system is not supremo, human being is supremo. That's what is important. To certain extent control system can take charge of it, but ultimately if I want to develop a system, ultimately the control system has to be in the hands of a human being. It should not. be in the hands of a control system, then you take decision the way you want. And that's where the learning happens. Now here, I wish to tell you that I talked about this problem. Now, there are many issues which my faculty colleagues would talk about. For example, copying, and it is a perennial issue. If I give this problem statement to a student, he will copy from his colleague and show me. But now the system is so flexible, I can modify the system the way I want. I can change this system and I say that yes, instead of one motor, you should start two motors. So there is a small change, because the basic reason for copying, tempting towards copying, is copying maybe the efforts which somebody has taken, and I don't want to take those efforts. But if the problem is different, somebody is helping him to copy, he'll say, oh, I have to take more efforts for you to help, I'm sorry, I can't. So that's the philosophy behind that. So I develop these problems, say that yes, in certain cases, temperature and pressure, temperature of winding and pressure of the lubricating oil should not be high, or one should be low and one should be high. You just do that. So for a student, you can have different assignments to work with. You don't have to worry about, and that's the philosophy. You don't have to worry about whether students will copy, whether they will learn or not. Ultimately, you can develop your own philosophy of testing them. What is the philosophy? I say that please challenge them. Please challenge the students and make sure that you are asking them to struggle. There is no shortcut for success. All these lessons a student can learn if you give him a problem, and ultimately you tell him that this problem is a problem associated with your day-to-day life, right? So when the lift motor is going up and down, you are giving a command only. That's what you are doing. So every day what you are doing, you should practice here and then correlate. Now what is important, a fraction of second, if you, and whenever we go out and talk about this software and everything at your place. Now what you can do, I was talking about how to reduce the burden on a teacher. Now if I ask, for example, I'm an administrator and I want to check how the colleges have used this facility. I'll just, okay. So you will find that till the last year, 30,130 hits were there from all nodal centers only, and about 15,000 hours, don't forget, 15,000 hours these labs are being utilized. But I want to see what was the scenario in 2018-19, because I'm interested in that. Then in that case, I will check how it works. For example, just look at this. 2,346 hours last to last year. We crossed that limit, and that too exponentially. That means the colleges are taking interest in these experiments. They are using these experiments. On top of that, this can be a data for them to see how many students are registered, who is using this. So if I want to go to the final reports, till date what had happened, how we progressed. If I want to check this, then I get here the report where it says that till this time, around 1,11,596 simulator hits were there, and we use around 29,000 hours. These laboratories are being used, and that too. Now this is for my faculty colleagues saying that certain laboratories are not used. Maybe there are some reasons for that, but everybody will say that yes, in computer domain 3,000 hours, in electronics 8,000, in electrical 11,000, in biotechnology, biomedical, depending on the specialty of that lab, and number of labs are also less than 95 hours, but mechanical 1,300 hours, civil 6,000, chemical 294. So we get a feel as a developer, as a consortium partners, we get a feel that which labs are being used and which labs are not being used, and then we go back, and that's how it strengthens our decision. Before we take a decision, there is a data available. Now this data was, as you have seen, it's click of a button. I don't have to work hard to get the data. Otherwise, I I appreciate the efforts of all heads of the department. They have to circulate a letter saying that, oh, how many of these you have used, give me the number. Faculty members would become a coordinator, he will be coordinator, consolidate all these things, and finally a report will be printed. How much effort which we are putting it unnecessary. I want all my faculty members to concentrate only on teaching. Only on teaching. All groundwork which can be automated must be automated. there is no doubt about it. We will have to do that one day or other. Let's put our hands together, let's come together and let's do that exercise. But what is important is, for example, a faculty member says that I gave some assignments to students saying that, oh, you use this lab for 2 hours, and I want to see whether those students have used this. There is a report. You can, for example, using user ID, you can put a report. So I just want to, I'll just go to general. Yeah, I'll put here, and then you can go back to everything and check how the things are happening, right? So these reports, every student wise, class wise, department wise, college wise, all the reports are available over here, and you can use those reports for your benefit, and that's what we want now. Okay, so at the background, when I say that you have those records, this is the home wherein, so this would become your home for the virtual laboratories if you are a nodal center. Now coming back to few more experiments which are the experiments which we are doing, and I must tell you those experiments. If you look at these third phase laboratories, now these third phase laboratories, phase 3 which we are working on, where you have an analytics at the back end where student is as if he'll experiment. So he can connect this, put the block here, put it, collect the block and put it here, and keep on working whatever he or she wants to. And that's what is the beauty of these experiments. And while putting those experiments, what we have done is, this is where I'm saying, this is the pre-test, all right? For example, this is the pre-test. Normally what happens in our phase 1 and phase 2, we found this as a difficulty. The difficulty is the questions are same. There is no dynamic, or there is no maybe the back end of the question bank is not attached to that. So the questions are same. So students start getting boring, saying that, oh, I know all this, or somebody says that, oh, what to do. So there is no real assignment which takes place. What we have done this time, and that's why I appealed you to become question bank consortium, wherein these pre-test, for example, on this configuration, the pre-test is there, and that pre-test should be dynamic pre-test. Now, on this particular experiment, if my faculty colleagues come together, sit together and say that, yes, let's develop a question bank, at the back end, these questions will get automatically changed. And let us not forget, the beauty of this is every time, new questions would come. There are questions, or the type of this question bank which we have developed. You can have 3 levels of difficulties. You can say primary level 0, level 1, level 2. You can have multiple choice question, you can have true false question, you can match the pair, you can have audio based question, you can have video based question, you can have paragraph based questions, you can have multiple questions. You just put all those questions in place, your question bank will become richer and richer. I don't think student will ever get a chance to copy, because what changes is, for every student new questions would come. Not only that, these options would be changing. That means you can't just pass on a message saying that question number 2 B. You just can't, because question number is different. Every time question numbers are different, options are different. But this is not for policing. This is to indicate to the student very in a subtle way that instead of copying, you better practice. Right? It's not a question of failure, it's a question of whether you have learned or not. And I want to know whether you have learned or not. How can I know that if you copy? You are fooling yourselves. Let's not do that. So give that confidence to a student. We can have here even mock test also. So you create a mock test and tell them that you practice. And those mock test questions will not come. There's a different question bank. And then what is important is, and that's where we are working on, probably this we will be through, a student, and that's where we want to have a differentiator. Good must be called as good, bad must be called as bad, bad must be given a chance to become a good, good should not become bad. That's the philosophy which we are talking about, right? So in that case, if somebody is good and the pace of learning is higher, let us not demoralize him by giving the same set of dose, right? That prescription has to be changed. So we have a prescription based on the performance. A student who is performing well, he will get higher difficulty level questions automatically. Now that's the beauty actually, and that's how we have to keep on challenging our students. I always feel that there is many things which we all can do together. So that analytics and this MI and this ML and AI would work here. So many things can happen, and ultimately, this is in public domain. This is the property of everybody. This is not owned by COEP. This is developed. It's conceptualized by COEP, developed by COEP for the public. That's the motto of our consortium, also a virtual lab consortium, and that's how we will give that to everybody. But the faculty members must contribute to this noble cause, and the reason is I can't sit idle and say that hey, somebody will give me a question bank and then I'll test. That's not, because you know what type of students you have, and that's the maybe the composite learning which we can have. So the phase 3 laboratories which we will be developing will have all these facilities. Everything which is being done here, a wrong click, a wrong connection, a wrong reading, a wrong maybe plotting a graph, a wrong decision, everything is being locked at the back end. And then we will come to know that there are 4 stages in one experiment. These experiments which we are developing, there are 4 phases in this experiment, like characterization, calibration, then fault finding, right? So all these experiments, all these experiments can be easily handled by the student, and then you can come to know that yes, this particular student is lacking. I'll just show you. First, these are the phases, and these phases are based on, these 5 phases are there, and these 5 phases are based on the work which you are expecting an instrumentation. For example, this is an experiment for instrumentation engineer, but can be done by many, because even today electrical engineers are being asked to do automation work. And that's where industry is expecting that these are the 5 competencies an engineer, if he claims that he can use the transmitter, process transmitter like flow transmitter, pressure transmitter, he should have all those things. Like he should be in a position to configure a transmitter, he should be in a position to connect and wire that transmitter properly, characterize it, calibrate it, and find faults also. So for all these 5 competencies, using Bloom's taxonomy, because Bloom's have that taxonomy has not mentioned many of the terms which are being mentioned here, because unfortunately Bloom's taxonomy is not for laboratory. So we developed our own understanding about Bloom's taxonomy, and then we said that these are the action verbs which a student must learn. Now what is important here, and I must tell you to all my faculty colleagues, if this is a structured learning you give them as a prescription, then if a student is not in a position correctly, because these are, if unless and until you do this, you can't do here. It's like a game. It's like a game. So proudly somebody can say that I'm at level 3, I'm doing this. So that's a competition in the amongst the students also. But while doing configure a transmitter, if a student has taken this much time and these many mistakes, every mistake is being recorded at the back end, and you will get a report saying that though that student has performed this experiment, all the 5 levels he has crossed, but in this particular level he took a lot of time, he made mistakes. That means he has to learn again. So what is the prescription then for that student? Not to repeat the entire experiment, otherwise it's a frustration. Believe me, it's a frustration. So how to avoid this? So we'll say that yes, you are very good, congratulations, you have done wonderfully well as far as wiring is concerned, characterization, calibration and fault finding, but we found that while configuring the transmitter you are still not clear. Please go back and do that portion only. So he'll be happy saying that out of 5, at least 4 I have gone through. Otherwise what will happen? It is a repeat. So that's the way which we are now observing in our traditional laboratory work, wherein if any mistake is there, go back and start with step number 0. That is not required, and these labs would give you explicit advantage of doing those things. That's the beauty of this laboratory. And then I'm going to tell you about the 2 more maybe experiments which we are doing, and I'm sure you will also be part of those experiments, because these experiments are highly essential nowadays. After lockdown, in new normal, what will happen nobody knows, but the only thing is sure and certain is the colleges are going to start from the month of July, whether it is virtual or actual or real, on campus or off campus. But one thing is very clear, that the colleges are going to start, teachers are going to start teaching, students are going to start learning, nothing is going to stop. Only thing is the physical appearance, either in the class or at home, would be the change. But it should happen, and that's my sincere request, and that's what we have learned actually, and that's how we are proposing all these things in front of you. And I appeal all my faculty colleagues to take them seriously and make sure that teaching has to be reduced. My sincere appeal to everybody is our teaching has to be reduced, their learning has to improve and enhance by giving them more and more assignments, by engaging them in activities. Please keep it in mind, it is boring sitting in front of a computer, listening to somebody. I'm sure thanks to you, because you have shown that patience and you are hearing to me, but it cannot be a repetitive thing. Today it is only for 2 hours, so I said okay, let's do that. Otherwise in between that there must be activities, you have to ask students, you have to keep on capturing how the response of each and every student, so the engagement will increase. And that's what is the new normal for after lockdown in education system. And that's where I'm going to show you the thing which we are working on. Is called as Intake Olympiad. It is called as Integrated Technology Olympiad. This is the 6th year of this Intake Olympiad. 5 years we have just completed. And the idea is the backbone of engineering education. I said laboratory. At the same time, if you take a sample of this, you will find the second backbone of engineering education is the project work which the students are doing, either a mini project or a main project. But unfortunately, we are not giving that much attention to those projects. And that's the reason we came out with the idea in association with industry and our virtual laboratory consortium and the A4 Technologies as our industry partner. But again, free of cost for public. We don't charge any student a single penny. We take everything from industry and ask them, this is the noble cause which we are doing, you should support. And many colleges, including AICT, also supports us for this. Last 5 years, we have more than 25,000 registrations. Then we give them some tests, and then we shortlist them, and finally we give them the problem statements. And these problem statements, which is a unique thing about Integrated Technology Olympiad, is these problem statements are given to students in a heterogeneous manner in a interdisciplinary group. So one may be from mechanical, one from electrical, one from computer, from different colleges. They work together, and they work together as a team and develop the soft prototype. And another best thing about this is, for each team there is an industry mentor which keeps on talking to those students. But we appeal all those students that it is your desire to learn. It is not industry's desire for you to learn. It is other way around. They are finding from their busy schedule time for you. You have to use that time, utilize their time effectively. So you have to be very, very effective in communication. You have to be effective in working. At the end of the day, you have to learn. So we extended this for last few years. Then soft prototypes we converted, and we gave opportunity to few finalists to come to various industries and work with them, understand how industries work, because there will be a new change and the new shift in paradigm which is going to come very shortly, is the way industries are recruiting engineers. Previously, industries used to go to the campuses, conduct the interviews, and then shortlist them and give them offer later. This is not going to happen hence onwards. Nobody is going to travel to your campus and conduct the interview and then see. Instead of that, they'll ask for the credential of the student. They'll ask for what is that guarantee. We put all of cost. Afterwards you have to pay for something. Every time then you get the data, you block. Okay, can I go to, yeah. When you go back and when you claim that your students are working well, they have practiced, they have not wasted time, but this investment for summer vacation is useful for all faculty members to ensure the livelihood in the next semester. If you want to see ever shining faces, very enthusiastic faces of your students, even they are remotely connected with you, you have to invest your time now. So I appeal all my colleagues, all my faculty colleagues, to please ensure that you invest time. There is a platform available. If you have any question about anything, if you need any help, I can be reached through my portal, and you can write to me if you need any help. But at the end, I must say, all my faculty colleagues are equally going through the stress, and the stress is basically how to handle this situation. This is the time for all of us to practice the new way of learning, because for last so many years we have practiced something, and suddenly somebody is asking me to change the route. It's not easy, and I'm totally aware that it's not that easy to change the way we were learning or the way we were teaching. This is the time to prepare our own presentations, very, very attractive and challenging assignments, quizzes in between, because the online platform would demand all those things which are required. Otherwise, the backbenchers, we used to call them backbenchers in our literal meaning. Now here, silent observers or only present type of students on your online lecture may not serve the purpose. And you will have to, and I must tell you, you will have to take charge now, because ultimately you are the owner of this entire teaching and learning process. Last few things. Virtual laboratory nodal center is a center through which you can access those experiments and use those all features which I talked about. But if you are not a nodal center, That doesn't mean that you are deprived of using virtual labs. You can directly go to vlab.co.in. I'll just show you the slide. Yeah, last slide I'll show you. Yeah. So if you can go through, sorry, the last slide where all the email ID, this portal details are given. Just trying to find out. Okay, I'll just check. So I can show you. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. So you can go to vlab.co.in where you can use these laboratories. All the laboratories developed by all our 12 participating institutions, very hardworking professors they have developed. If you face any difficulty related to any lab, you need to contact to the respective institutions because they are the owner of that laboratory, and you will be of course helped and you will be supported. But if you want to use all the facilities which I talked about and you want to become an active member of the consortium, wherein the only motto is to ensure the academic efficiency has improved. Academicians have taken the challenge by heart, and they will ensure, all the fraternity academicians will ensure that the new regime of teaching learning would be a successful regime. All those can go to portal.coepvlab.ac.in, see the experiments, become the nodal center first, so that you will get all the analytics associated with the learning of a student. Be member, but don't just be a nodal center, don't just be a faculty member, be an active faculty member who is interested in developing new question banks, very interesting assignments, quizzes, type of assignments to be included in the question bank which we are proposing. I thank uh, the, of course, the college I must thank because they have taken a lot of effort in ensuring that this LR Tiwari College of Engineering in Thane, they have taken a lot of efforts in ensuring that such type of online meeting should happen, and many faculty members are working on that. So with these words, I'll conclude my talk, and I can be reached through my virtual laboratory portal, and we can continue working together. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Science mobile app currently have 18,000 subscribers in India and also in 12 other countries. We are looking for experts like you who can deliver an expert talk for 15 to 20 minutes in your current research area. Or you can also present your profile so that interested collaborators will approach you for consultancy, research progress, or academic collaboration. Just accept our invitation, so that you broadcast your video in the appropriate groups and also in mobile app with timely notification to all the users. This helps to share the knowledge to the required students, scholars, etc. Prepare the PPT content and recorded video with any screen recorder software, or simply send your selfie video mentioning your expertise, so that we broadcast that video to the users. As said, this will help generating new research collaborations, presenting your work, sharing your ideas and also publicizing your expertise and skills. Please see the video is of 10 to 15 minutes. We look forward for your positive response. Contact us today. Thank you. Science mobile app currently have 18,000 subscribers in India and also in 12 other countries. We are looking for experts like you who can deliver an expert talk for 15 to 20 minutes in your current research area. Or you can also present your profile so that interested collaborators will approach you for consultancy, research progress, or academic collaboration. Just accept our invitation, so that you broadcast your video in the appropriate groups and also in mobile app with timely notification to all the users. This helps to share the knowledge to the required students, scholars etc. Prepare the PPT content and recorded video with any screen recorder software or simply send your selfie video mentioning your expertise, so that we broadcast that video to the users. As said, this will help generating new research collaborations, presenting your work, sharing your ideas and also publicizing your expertise and skills. Please see the video.
दोस्तों, इस वर्चुअल लैब को अंडरस्टैंड करने के लिए इस वीडियो को पूरा देखें सो दैट कि आपको हर चीज़ अच्छे से समझ में आए। अगर आप इस वीडियो को पूरा नहीं देखेंगे तो आप कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स मिस कर देंगे। हेलो गाइस, आई वेलकम यू ऑल टू माय यूट्यूब चैनल। आज हम बात करने वाले हैं वर्चुअल लैब के बारे में। एक ऐसी लैब जिसको आप घर बैठे इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं। इसको इस्तेमाल करने के लिए सिर्फ आपको चाहिए एक बढ़िया इंटरनेट कनेक्शन। So let's begin this video without wasting any time. सबसे पहले आपको सर्च इंजन गूगल ओपन करना है और यहाँ पे टाइप करना है वर्चुअल लैब। वर्चुअल लैब टाइप करने के बाद एंटर प्रेस करें। वर्चुअल लैब एंटर करने के बाद जो सबसे पहला लिंक आता है www.vlab.co.in, इस पे आपको क्लिक करना है। तो मैं क्लिक कर देता हूँ। वर्चुअल लैब का ये इंटरफेस है। दिस इज द इंटरफेस फॉर द वर्चुअल लैब। नाउ यू कैन सी वर्चुअल लैब्स एंड MHRD गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया इनिशिएटिव। तो दोस्तों,
so that we broadcast that video to the users. As said, this will help generating new research collaborations, presenting your work, sharing your ideas and also publicizing your expertise and skills. Please see the video is of 10 to 15 minutes. We look forward for your positive response. Contact us today. Thank you.